Today I'm Traveling John, and I'm going to travel and sketch. Join me on the adventure. We are now halfway through our adventures in Europe, and the green line shows you the cities in bold that we have visited. And now this is the second part of our vlog on the city of Salzburg. Well, we took a long walk up to the castle today, and it was about 40 years ago that I took my last view of that beautiful castle in Salzburg, and it was free. But this time we walked 3/4 of the way up, and all of a sudden we realized there's an admission to get into that area. Oh, but it was so worth it because we saw so many things. The view, of course, is spectacular of the city itself. And then we saw a really wonderful museum of puppets up there too. Puppets that were used in the king's court, and of all different characters, from evil characters to insects to all sorts of different type of things, and of course the heroes too. And so I'm going to be sharing a couple of pictures I took in that puppet area of the castle, and that'll be coming up. And then after that I will be going into the color rendition of the black and white sketch that I've done. So that is coming up. We spent 2 nights and 1 full day in Salzburg. And when I say full, I mean it was a wonderful, full experience. And the first part of the morning on our first day, we took a hike up towards the castle. And in that process, we walked up many stairs and steep slopes. But in the process of doing that, we saw some wonderful views of the city below. And we, of course, I got that one picture of one of the church steeples where we were almost even with the same height of that. And then as we went further up the pathway, I saw this really very enlightening or enchanting village of chalets. and the gardens that were growing around them. It was a very wonderful experience just to get up there and see those beautiful chalets and gardens, especially in the month of May when we were visiting. And we went up to the castle, and of course I talked a little bit about the puppet museum, which is of course worth seeing. But the other thing that I really enjoyed seeing was a little museum off to the side that showed three-dimensionally the changes that went on with the castle over the centuries. It showed the old castle when it was first built, and then the new walls that were put around it, better walls, bigger walls being put up, more larger buildings, larger church, a cathedral up there. So it was just all the changes that went on during the century. It was fascinating. So I would encourage you to go up there and see that too. And the other thing that we enjoyed was the collection of restaurants. Oh my goodness, what a view. So you could sit there, enjoy a nice meal, look over the wall and see the valley below, and of course the hills, and in our case, the places we sat, you could see those beautiful snow-capped mountains in the distance. As the day went on, the clouds came in, so it became a little bit dark. So I have to apologize for that last talk I did in the park because it was a little bit overcast and dark. But after that, we just relaxed a while, then went back into the city, enjoyed a really nice restaurant right next to the river, and then I took some more pictures and walked up the hill a little bit and took some wonderful pictures of that. In fact, it was one of my last pictures of that arch, and I almost feel like it had something to do with the church because it looked like it had a church designed window there. And it was an entryway with a walkway coming on either side. It was one of my favorite pictures. And actually, I wish I could have illustrated that, but I can't do everything in this vlog. So let's move on. Let me explain that what I did is I copied the black and white sketch that I did on canvas, and I digitally applied that to my computer, and I opened it up in a software program where I'm actually going to be adding color to that sketch, but not to the sketch directly, only to a digital copy of that sketch. So I hope you enjoy the process. This is the ink line sketch on my computer monitor, and I'm about to start adding color. Now, whenever I do this process, I never want to use the original line artwork. So what I've done is I've copied this and I put it on a layer, and the layers are all over here. As you can see, I've already processed or done a lot of the work and added the color the way I like it, and I'm not going to go through all the details of what I went through because that would be quite a few hours of work, but I'm going to explain as much as I can without encumbering our time. So anyway, so here is the copy of the sketch, and I did a multiply mode so it looks very dark. I'm going to put the white background on so you can see the way it actually really is. And one of the things I wanted to do on this artwork is give it the effect of those beautiful late afternoons when the sun was just beginning to go down and there was that golden hue in the sky. It reflected in the river, and of course, again, I want to emphasize those green copper domes and steeples on the churches. So I think that's going to be a nice effect on this. So what I did is, in order to achieve that, I did colored, and this is, again, this line work is on multiply mode, so it will show anything underneath it. And I gave it sort of a gray haze, so I wouldn't get too bright with the colors that I put in here. I want it to be sort of a late afternoon where there's not a strong sun hitting anything. So that's what the effect I'm going to give it. Now, the first thing I did was to do the sky, so I can get a feeling of overall what this is going to be looking like. And before I talk about that, I want to explain to you that I like the effect of the ink line fading off the edge of the canvas. And so I want to do the same effect with the color. In order to achieve that, I put a layer above all the others that will override everything of a nice soft white edge. So it doesn't affect the ink line itself, but it does affect all the color that's going to be below that. Now, the first thing I did was the sky, and I'm going to show you that I created a path for that to start with. And we go down here, the sky and the river, and I'm going to select that. By the way, when I make the path, I use the tool, which is right here, the pen tool, to go along and create the kind of path I want. You can see a little example of that going on now. And so I've already done that, and that's the blue line. And I'm going to make a selection of that. And I'm going to soften it a little bit. Now, as I've explained in other vlogs, it always looks like a bunch of little ants running around, but that gives you the indication of the area where the color is going, which is up here and the river itself. Now, first thing I want to do is create the colors I want up there. So I want it to be yellow, a bright late afternoon yellow as the sun's going down. And I want it to be a peach color. That's too strong. I'm going to go down to about there. And I'm going to use what's called the gradient tool, which is right here. And that will give it a gradient going across the screen. I've got to go back to the layer. I'm going to make up one at this point, a new layer. I'm just going to let it be that. And here we go. And as I put the tool across this, you'll see the effect going from yellow to orange. Oops, this moved a little bit. And here we go, across the sky. And there we have the effect I'm hoping to get on this. I also want a little bit more white up in this area to indicate the setting sun. So I'm gonna get some white, and in this case, I'm going to use the paintbrush tool. That's too small. I don't want a small sun, I want a rather large one. Oh, my finger keeps moving that screen. So I'm going to increase the size of that to a larger image, somewhere in there. And there we go. That's sort of what I'm just going to give a soft, light edge to it. Maybe get it right in there. There we go. That's the sort of thing I want. So we're going to deselect that. Now that's just shows you how I did it. But this, and I'm going to throw that layer away because that's just an example. Delete layer. Yes. And this is the actual sky I used. It's a little bit stronger, but I was quite content with that. The next thing I wanted to do is, because I'm dealing with these colors, I want to deal with the distant ground and its effect with that last light of the afternoon coming down on it. So I'm going to show you how I did that by pulling up another sample, new layer. Okay. I'm going to lower that down. Now, and once again, I created a path, and you can see I created a lot of paths here. And I'm not going to go through each one in detail, but we're going to do the distant mountains for this one. And I'm going to make a selection. I'm going to keep it at 3, soften it a little bit. And why don't we do this? Why don't we start off with a little bit of the color that's already up there. And just put a little bit, and I'm just going to add a little bit at a time to give the distant effect. So this isn't the full color, it's just a portion of the color in the background. Let's get a little bit bigger. trying to get my brush tool to be the right size. Okay, here we go. Little color in there, not a lot, not full. Okay, then I'm going to get a little, let's just say, I'm playing around now with this, and the final work is going to probably be different than what you're seeing here, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how I achieved what I did. And there's a little bit of green in here, so we're going to move it up to green, light green, just a little green in there. There we go, a little green down in here. Okay, let's see what I can do. I'm gonna, I'm just playing here, okay? The distant mountains, let's say, have a little bit of purple, not that much. Just back that up, hit it, undo brush tool, and just give it a little bit less, just a little bit of purple as the sky, as the day is coming to an end. Okay, now I'm going to add a little more green, a little gray green in here, right up in here. Okay, and I'm going to get a little more orange, peachy color in there. And maybe a little bit of red. Maybe that's good, just on a distant mountain, just a little bit. So you can see where I'm going with this. I'm just sort of playing around to get the effects that I want. So I'm going to deselect that now. And I'm going to go back to layers, throw that one away, delete layer, yes, and I'm going to show you the actual, that's the way I ended up. That's what I liked after working on it for a while, the effect. And I actually gave it a little bit of a white background behind it to lighten it up from the gray, again, because there's a strong light coming down on it. This is a little bit in a valley with the mountains hiding it a little bit from the sun. So the next thing that I went to, the forest foliage going around here. I like the darkness of that. It sort of brings out the highlight of the town itself. So I'm going to show you what I did. First of all, of course, I made a path for that, and this is what it looks like when I filled it in. So we got the forest foliage, and I used a little bit of the brush tool there, and there's a brush tool, so I get a light and a dark green. And then I actually, as you see me, I'm going to turn that selection tool off, deselect. What I did is I actually used the filter pixelate pointilize so I can get a little variation of the colors going in there to give the green again the effect of the setting sun, or that time of day. Fit on screen, I didn't want it to be just a solid color. So that's one of the nice things about that filter. So I got the forest in. The next thing I did is I wanted to put the cliffs in, and again I used the brush tool a little bit so I could get lighter areas and darker areas, especially going down where those cliffs meet the back of the houses, as you saw in those photographs that I showed earlier. Now the next thing that I did after I did the cliffs is I went to the lawns and the trees that are down into the cityscape itself. So I did once again a selection tool, and I added the lawns that go along the riverbank, the trees that are inside of the city, and then and I did those a little bit lighter because I don't want them to be too dark and conflict with the work of the buildings itself, or the art. So I did that, and then what I wanted to do is the color of the roofs in the city itself. Now, of course, I left them all white in the black and white sketch, because if I did them as dark, or if I did the line work for that, then that would have distracted from the sketch itself. So the first thing I did was the light gray. I use again a selection tool. I added some gray on this wall that separates the platform on the castle from the city itself. And then you can see all the light, and then I also added the dark. And again, I would use the selection tool so you can imagine how long it took me to go through this. It was quite a while to do all the edges for that. And again, I did it soft. I did a selection tool of only 3. That way it softened out. It didn't make it a hard edge. I always like that when I'm working on these projects. So now I wanted to put the color in for the buildings. Now I got to show you how I did that, because those colors are behind the roof. So I didn't have to worry about the color going over the roof because it's underneath it. So I'm going to do a new tool to show you how I did that. A new layer, excuse me. And I'm going to make a color here pretty similar to most of the colors I used on this, somewhere in there. And the colors of the buildings were sort of an earthy yellow and orange on this. I'm going to draw close to just a portion of the sketch. And I used a pencil tool on this, not the brush, but the pencil to give it a nice hard edge. To just color in the whole thing if I want. I don't have to worry. About going over the roof, because once again, this is below in the layers. One of the nice thing about layers in this software, I can go over to the buildings and just quickly put a color in wherever I want. It'd be a little bit sloppy, it's okay, because this is a sketch. It's very easy to do this with, and it would take forever if I use the selection tool. So we're going to deselect, we're going to delete that layer now. And I'll show you the colors I put in for the buildings. There, some of them are lighter pastels, some of them are more of the yellow, some of them are more of a red color. You can see there's a bigger red one there. So let's view fit and screen again. I'm sorry, I right now it's in May here and I got a little bit of allergy going, so I feel a little bit like my nose is stuffed, and it sounds like it too. So there we go. There we got the roofs, we got the color of the buildings in the way I'm happy with, even in the distance. Some of the skyscrapers in there, or larger buildings, and so that's a nice soft colored effect there, giving it again the idea that it's a late afternoon and the sun is setting. But now the next thing I want to do is show you the roofs, or the cathedral and domes and steeples that are that green copper color. So I made a selection of that with the path tool, and I applied that color to it. And to give a little more depth in the shading on the side opposite the light, I added that version too. And then above each one of those spheres is a gold above the dome and the steeples is a little bit of a golden sphere, as you can see there. So I put those in, and I actually also put highlight, just as a light of the sky is hitting that golden sphere. But the interesting thing is most of these steeples and domes had a cross on top of the gold sphere, but down there below in the main court is that huge sphere. You may have seen a photograph of it in my last vlog, with a man standing on top instead of a cross. Well, gives it sort of a humanistic theme to it instead of a religious theme, which of course I think the sphere is probably a representation of the earth, or even creation maybe. So let's again view this from fit on screen. Slide it over and finish this color application up. So in the black and white sketch, I was quite content with leaving the people just white with black line. But now, because I've added all that color, the people look like little white ghost images there. So I had to put some color there, but I didn't want to emphasize it too much. So I just put some colors that were not too bright, but would give it that almost shaded feeling. And then I also added a little bit of a gray to the platform that they're standing on, because I didn't want that to be too bright compared to the area below. I want that area again to stand out in this sketch. So that's the completion of the color application to this black and white sketch. First, I would like to show you the full-sized color sketch on the screen. I know you've seen it before in the software program, but without all the tools around it, you'll hopefully get a little bit different perspective of what it looks like. And yes, it took quite a while to produce when you include all making the paths and then filling in the colors that I was satisfied with. But it was all worth it. I enjoyed it very much. I enjoy the process of using a software program. And I also enjoy the process of doing the original ink line sketch. So here again is a sketch, and I have done other sketches of Europe and then also in California, including San Francisco and several in Yosemite. So I would encourage you to go to my website, which is TravelnSketch.com. And there you'll see two buttons, one of which actually goes to my gallery and store, where you can see those other sketches that I've done, both the original black and white on canvases and then also the museum quality archival prints of both the black and white and the color of each one of those. So I'd encourage you to go there. And also, with regards to my channel, I would encourage you, if you haven't seen the other vlogs, to look at those too, because I don't always use the same process when I add color to the sketch. In some cases, I used watercolor as a background color. In some cases, I used pastel. In some cases, I used colored pencils. And then there was always the process of using the filters in the software program itself to come up with interesting effects. So I would encourage you to go to that channel, which is also a button on my website, if you haven't done that yet. And please subscribe to this channel. I hope it's worth your while, because in the process you will be notified of the next vlog I'm going to do. The next one is going to be on Prague, which is a very exciting, enchanting city. And when you do subscribe, make sure you click the little bell button to the right of the subscribe, because that way you'll be sure to be notified. Thanks for watching this vlog, and have a great day.